Well, back to this idea of interference. Proactive interference is when previous learning can make retention of subsequent learning more difficult. So, for instance, and this next slide will contrast the two. If the participant's job is to learn list A and B, so for instance, they learn words like flag, spoon, and drawer, switch. Basically, I've got paired associates as your text describes it. So they learn lists A, B, where flag is paired with spoon and drawer is paired with switch. Then they make new pairs, such as flag being paired with something else and drawer being paired with something else. And then they're tested on AC. The presumption is that the memory for list AC will be hindered by the knowledge of list AB. It's still lingering and getting in the way. Now, the control group, of course, didn't have that first list, and therefore they would not suffer from this proactive interference, and list AB would not get in the way. Now, the reverse of that is retroactive, which I think is more realistic and more common. Learning the later list AC gets in the way of AB if I'm trying to learn that. And I'll give you a perfect example of retroactive interference here as a professor. That there were many, many semesters in a row for a lot of years where I taught in-person statistics. And I think, gosh, this was 18 or 19 straight years, so maybe 36, 38 straight semesters. And one of the things I had trouble remembering is who was in the immediate prior section, let's say in fall when I started in spring. So by February 1st, my memory for the previous section and where they sat had been overridden by the spring semester students who sat in the same chairs. It was just impossible to conjure the previous group because it had been completely replaced by the new group. Now, that's not to say I forgot those people altogether, but it really was kind of a new imprint, if you will, and that's retroactive interference. Where proactive interference of something old gets in the way of learning something new. For example, let's say if I'm a tax accountant working at H&R Block here in Nacogdoches, and they're about to get real busy in March and April. Well, in that case, they may have some new rules that have come down for the 2023 tax year. And the problem is that the old rules will get in the way, and they have to keep reminding themselves, oh yeah, that's been changed. I can't do that anymore. For example, I'll give you a crazy thing that just came out today. In college volleyball, they're now going to allow, when the ball is served, for the person that hits it back, the very first person to hit the ball will be able to hit it twice. That's a new rule. And I imagine there'll be some proactive interference there in which the old rule gets in the way. Oh, whoa, they can hit it twice. That's going to be hard to get around for these umpires, I imagine. So now, is there anything else that may affect retention, duration, and forgetting? And I run into this all the time, especially when I park here at SFA every day in the same lot. The deceptively simple task of recalling where I parked my car. If you have never before been to a shopping center or a particular place, it'll be easy to remember. And there are places I seldom go to, like the mall in Tyler or the mall in Longview or a handful of other places that I only get to maybe twice a year. So on the other hand, if you park there frequently, you'll find yourself reunited with the spot where you parked yesterday, or like present authors standing befuddled at the lot's edge, which I often do. You know, when I get here, I'm at the mercy of who came before me, and sometimes I have to park somewhat far away out in the middle lot by the library. So if I seldom visit somewhere, I don't have much diffusion, and I'm much more likely to remember the particular place I parked. On the other hand, if it's every day, those experiences get spread out over time, and I have trouble remembering those things. So that's what we might describe as the fan effect. To account for some of these results, psychologist Anderson and others who's still alive describe a phenomenon known as the fan effect. The idea is that research participants study more facts about a concept. The time they need to retrieve a particular fact about the concept increases. So, for example, if you study a lot of facts about forgetting, your ability to recall anything about it might be hampered. So, for instance, let's say the very first time I've ever heard of the Vietnam War, I could remember some basic facts like the year roughly that it began, 64, 65, I think it was in that neighborhood, and it ended in 75. Then if I keep studying, well, after a few months, I know hundreds of facts about the Vietnam War and I have trouble conjuring one of those. In that case, my knowledge of the Vietnam War has been fanned, if you will. It's been diffuse or spread out over several dimensions. So Anderson and Neely speculated that forgetting may not be so much a shortcoming of memory as a side effect of our ability to direct memory. So in particular, they wondered whether sometimes it's beneficial to be able to forget voluntarily, and I think it is. Consider the following example. You're working in a restaurant as a short order cook. People are always shouting orders at you. It may behoove you to maintain this information in immediate memory as you construct the sandwich and then to clear it right away when you're done so it doesn't interfere with new orders. So these authors reviewed the work that they reviewed suggests that when people lose information through directed forgetting, they experience much less proactive interference, things that stick to me later. And that's an adaptation, of course. If I were a tax accountant, it would behoove me to not be preoccupied with the rules of previous tax years and the standard deductions and the itemization laws that presumably change quite often. We're plagued with that here at us. I shouldn't say plagued, but advisors have that challenge in psychology. Our rules change subtly every single year for both the BA and the BS in terms of number of hours needed, and et cetera. If I had old advising sheets competing with my memory for how to complete new ones, that would be proactive interference. And I would do well to try to forget those old rules as soon as I can. So when we come back, we'll talk about retrieval of information, including mnemonics as one of my favorite subjects.